Hello there. In today's video, I'm going to cover the latest ISO 14001 2026 Environment Management System Standard. The latest version was recently published on 15th April 2026. So I'm going to discuss the changes to the environment management system, the structural changes to the new standard from the previous version, and then how a company can translate itself to the new version and what exactly you need to do. So that I will be covering the implementation step towards the end of this video. My name is Syed Arshad Hashmi, and I'm the principal consultant at Core System Consultant, where we provide consulting, training, and auditing services to a number of organizations and help them in achieving the international certifications. So let's get started. As you know, that 14001 has been revised, and the new version looks something like this. So the previous version was 2015 version, and the new version is called the 14001 2026 version. Now, before I dive into the changes, let me give you an overview also what an environment management system is all about. And in just two slides, I'll be covering that. So even if you're new to the topic, you may get aware about the 14001 environment management system before we dive into the changes part. So every industry that are out there has certain aspects, and those aspects, those industrial outputs may impact the community and may impact the environment for the people. Those aspects can comprise of the noise, smoke, dust that is coming out of those industries. That can also include the biodiversity loss or the ecosystem damage, which is basically discusses about the all the species on this planet, and their existence is vital for the balance in maintaining the environment at the planet. And then there are land and water contamination, air emissions, global warming, climate change. You must have heard number of these terms as well. The ozone depletion, and then waste management, land water pollution, so on and so forth. And lastly, all these industries uses natural resources, could be in terms of fossil fuel, could be in terms of energy, could be in terms of minerals that they are using. So the consumption and leading to the depletion of those natural resources is also an environmental aspect which may impact the environment. And then 14001, which is an environment management system, provides a framework for all these industries to operate in such a manner so that they may not pollute the environment and make it livable for the communities and the human beings that are out there. So, in a nutshell, there are industries out there which can be any kind of industry: shipping industry, construction industry, oil and gas industries, manufacturing sector, service sectors. Every industry uses certain inputs to operate, and during their normal operations they have certain aspects which may impact the air emissions, solid and liquid waste product, and then they consume natural resources. So the aim of the environment management system is to control that interaction of the industries with the environment to make it sustainable for the generations to come. And that is, in a nutshell, is an ISO 14001 environment management system is all about. So let's now start with the changes in the 2026 version as compared to the 2015, which was the previous version. So this is the structure of the new standard. And what are the structural changes? Let me first highlight that, and then I'll dive into the specific clauses where the changes have occurred. So, starting from the sixth clause, what they have done is that there's a structural change that they have done, and this is more logical. Previously, it was only four clauses from 6.1.1 till 6.1.4. Now you can see there are five clauses out there, and I'll explain you when I read the sixth clause just in a bit. And then the new clause that they have added is the 6.3, which is planning of changes. Now, the concept of changes is not new. It was earlier addressed in the previous 14001 standard, but now they have put a new clause to it to align it with the structure of the 9001 standard. So, this is an attempt to harmonize the structures of the standard so that it's easy for an organization to implement multiple management systems. The other structural change is with respect to the 9.3 clause. Earlier, it was only one clause, which was 9.3, and now they have broken it down into three sub clauses, which is again to align with the 9001 standard. And then there is one more structural change with respect to the 10th clause. Now, this is not to align with the 9001, rather, they have what they have done is that earlier it was three clauses, and they have changed it to two clauses, which makes all the sense. And my feel is that in the new version of the 9001 even, which is expected to come somewhere in September or October 2026, I think this is going to be the change in the 9001 version as well, because it makes all the sense and all the logic to put it in two clauses. Now let's start with the clause wise changes that has been done, starting with my fourth clause. So the even in the previous version, in the 2015 version, the term environmental condition is not a new term. They have added this one paragraph, which is within 4.1. But what they have done is that this environmental condition term, they have elaborated it in terms of the pollution levels, availability of natural resources, climate change, biodiversity, or ecosystem and health. So now you need to understand that this was considered, as I showed you in my previous graphical slide, when the companies used to do the aspect impact analysis. But now the standard, the 2026 version, has made it more explicit to be considered when considering the issues that can impact the environment management system of an organization. So they have made it very explicit. And then in 4.2 clause, they've added these two notes, which is again to elaborate the same environmental condition vis-a-vis the needs and expectations of the interested party. And the other thing that they have changed is that whatever the company may consider vis-a-vis those environmental condition as the needs and expectation, and company consider that to comply within their environment management system, in addition to the legal and regulatory requirement, that also needs to be considered as compliance obligations. So this is the sixth clause, which I told you earlier regarding the structure of the 14,001 standard. And this was the structure for the previous standard, 2015. Now, it was a four clause structure, which has been converted into five clauses. So in the new version, the 6.1.1, the general only explains that you need to have a process for all the rest of the four clauses from 6.1.2 till 6.1.5, and you need to have documentation as necessary as per the nature of business that you are in, as per your industry, for the 6.1.2 till 6.1.5. The other thing that I like to highlight is the fact that now the structure in the new standard from 6.1.2 till 6.1.5 is a lot more logical. Why? Because when you start the aspect impact analysis, that's the first activity that you do, which is described in 6.1.2, that you consider the aspects which may impact the environment. That leads you to consider the environmental obligations, that is, what is the law of the land with respect to the unit that you are considering for certification. That leads you to consider any risk assessment methodology or any formulation through which you are going to declare which aspects are significant at your industry. And that leads you to 6.1.5 to consider the action plan against those significant aspects. So this structure now is more logical and close to the actual working of the aspect impact analysis. So the 6.1.4 clause, which is risk and opportunity clause, seems like new, but it is not new clause. It was earlier explained in the previous version within 6.1.1 general. So they have restructured it and they have placed it smartly at the right place, which will map the flow of the aspect impact analysis that you must have been doing at your organization. So it's not a new requirement, it's a restructured requirements in a more logical way. Then within the 6.1.2, the environmental aspect, there was a concept earlier which was called life cycle perspective. Now it's not a new concept, it was previously present in the 2015 version as well. Now they have added a note to highlight that life cycle aspect, which considers that starting from the acquisition of the raw material, design, production, transportation, delivery, use, end of life treatment, and final disposal. So the company needs to consider, even previously, they need to consider the all the aspects that may impact the environment from the acquisition of the raw material till the final disposition of the product. Other changes, which is regarding the new clause, planning of changes. Now, as I told you earlier, this is really not a new clause. Why? Because the change management was discussed previously in the 8.1 clause. It was also discussed in the 9.3 clause in the previous version, and also in 10.2 clauses. So it was not exactly put as a clause. Now, in the new version, to align with the 9001 standard, they have made a 6.3, a new clause as control of changes or planning of changes. And it is basically the MOC process, which is called management of change. Few other changes in the standard with respect to the other structural changes that I showed you. First, starting from the 9.3. So the management review has been broken down to three clauses. Again, this is to align with the 9001 requirements of the standard. So the structure is aligned now. And then they have compressed the three clauses into two clauses, which is more logical again. So the earlier general has been removed now, and now they have called it continual improvement, and that discusses the topic very well within the continual improvement and the non-conformity and the corrective action, where really the improvement part comes in. So this is again more logical, more rationale based two clauses. And as I said, I'm hoping that 9001 structure would also be changed and would be put into two clauses now. Few other small changes in the standard with respect to 4.3 scope consideration. They have stated the life cycle perspective explicitly there with respect to the scope consideration. The 8.1 earlier was mentioning the outsourced processes. Now it is mentioning externally provided processes, products, and services. Again, this is a term that is also used in 9001. So again, they're trying to create that alignment in the same terminology in all the ISO standards. And lastly, they have done an interesting change, which is earlier it was maintain and retain terms that are used in the ISO standards for with the documented information. Now they have removed it altogether, and they're using just one term, which is available as documented information. And this is again one of those changes which I'm expecting that in the 9001 latest version, they're again going to use the same term, be that a policy, be that a procedure, be that a record. So they are going to use the same term as available as documented information, and they're not going to use maintain and retain. That's my feel on that. With that, let's talk about the transition. So this specific slide is for the companies who are already certified to the previous version. And in order for the companies who are looking for the certification to the new version, you can click one of my these videos where I discuss the whole certification process, how the stage one and how the stage two audits are done. This is for 9001 standard, my previous video, but that is also true for 14001 even. So the certification cycle does not change. You can refer that video. But in this video, I'm specifically considering the companies who are already certified, what exactly they need to do with the new requirements in order to upgrade themselves to the 2026 version. So the first thing that they need to evaluate is an explicit evaluation. So the climate change, explicitly evaluate that, pollution levels considered. So all the environmental condition that is mentioned in 4.1, they need to be explicit about it. What are their considerations for the natural resource availability? Have they assessed it with respect to the issues, with respect to the needs and expectation of the interested parties, the impact on the biodiversity and the ecosystem health? Have they addressed it? Have they considered it during the issues and during the needs and expectation of the interested parties? So the 4.1 and 4.2 clause are pretty explicit now on these environmental conditions, and a company who's already certified, they just need to make sure that these conditions are explicitly now addressed. They should not be implied anymore within their environment management system. That leads you to consider the aspect impact analysis. So whatever the changes, let's suppose, or the new requirements or the new consideration that you may have with respect to that study of the context of the organization, that will directly impact your aspect impact analysis. That can impact your determination of the significant aspect or whatever the changes that may be impacted in the aspect impact analysis. And that leads you to the operational control, which is if there are any changes which may come up with any modification of the existing controls or any add-on to the new controls, then you need to make sure that you are implementing those new controls. And you should be able to comply with the latest 2026 version. So that was a brief about the 2026 version. And in my next video, hopefully, I'll be discussing some of the other topics related to the ISO standard. If you are looking for any specific topic, you can put that into the comments area. And I hope to see you again in my next video. Till then, thank you very much.